I kind of feel like people like coconut for all the wrong reasons. I feel like there's this like preconceived notion that just because it's coconut, it's going to have a bunch of medium chain triglycerides, and that's just going to magically help you burn fat. Like, we got to debunk some of that stuff. The reality is coconut is by all means a high-fat superfood. And if you've been watching my videos, I've been doing this whole series on the 7 high-fat superfoods, whether you're keto, paleo, whatever. And coconut makes the cut. That's why we're talking about it. But there's some things that have got to clear up. So we're going to talk about lauric acid. We're going to talk about MCTs. We're going to talk about the antimicrobial properties. And by the end of this video, you're going to be wanting to put coconut on everything. Hey, I do want to make sure you hit that red subscribe button, and then please do hit that bell icon so you never miss our daily videos. All right, so here's the thing we have to know about coconut. Coconut's really only about 16% medium chain triglyceride. Okay, you've got C6, you've got C8, and you've got C10, which stands for carbon chain 6, carbon chain 8, or carbon chain 10, meaning 10 carbon chains, 8 carbon chains, etc. The lesser the amount of carbon chains, the quicker an oil absorbs or a fat absorbs. So C6 being the fastest absorbing. Okay, lauric acid is C12, and depending on who you ask, that could be medium chain triglyceride or it could be a regular fat. Now here's the difference that you need to know. Medium chain triglycerides absorb differently. They absorb via some way called passive diffusion. What that means is they don't need a carnitine shuttle. They don't go through the hepatic portal vein into the liver. They just magically kind of passively absorb and get into the mitochondria and get into our cells for energy. It's a really unique thing, in which it's what makes MCTs so powerful. Lauric acid is kind of up in the air. You see, some papers argue that since lauric acid has properties more like a regular fat, it doesn't absorb like medium chain triglycerides, and we shouldn't be touting the benefits of MCTs with lauric acid. So we should really, in theory, be treating lauric acid as a regular saturated fat. But be that as it may, it's a saturated fat with a ton of amazing properties. So the reason I'm getting this out in the open is I don't want you to lean on coconut for being just a super high-fat MCT. No, it has much more to offer than just that. You see, the lauric acid itself has a way of activating something called PPAR. Again, I sound like a broken record because I talk about this all the time in my videos, but maybe it's because it's that powerful and you should know about it, right? So PPAR alpha is a protein that gets activated that elevates our core body temperature, that ends up helping lipid mobilization. It ends up doing a lot of different positive things in the body. So when we have lauric acid in the equation, it directly stimulates that. It upregulates that, which indirectly helps us burn more fat, right? It also turns out that of all the saturated fats, lauric acid metabolizes the quickest, which makes sense because it's a short carbon chain and it doesn't take as much time to break down. There are studies that back up the fact that it's burned as fuel faster. So if you're doing a ketogenic diet or not, it turns out that lauric acid gets turned into a fat burning fuel a lot faster than other fats, meaning you could be stimulating some, well, fat loss. Now, another thing that you've probably heard floating around the internet before is that coconut oil is high in something called monolaurin. Well, not quite. Okay, this monolaurin is the antimicrobial effect that we get within our body, but it's because lauric acid, again, this saturated fat, not an MCT, depending on who you talk to, comes into the body and it gets converted into monolaurin when it gets acted upon by specific processes within the body. This monolaurin is one of the most powerful antimicrobial, antibacterial components that we can really ingest. And what's interesting is that we as humans don't develop resistance to its antimicrobial properties. So just a simple example is if you were to take a bunch of antibiotics over time, eventually you develop some resistance to them, right? Well, it turns out that monolaurin, at least as far as what we've seen with the research, doesn't seem to trigger any kind of resistance, probably because it acts upon our cells and our bacteria in 3 pretty distinct fashions. For one, it destroys the bacterial cell membranes of gram-positive bacteria. So this means it breaks down that protective membrane that certain bacteria would have. So it sort of injects itself into the process and just comes to the rescue in and of itself. Another thing that it does is it interferes with the signal transduction. It interferes with how cells and bacteria can communicate. So let's say you have a bunch of bad bacteria in your gut and they're communicating with one another and they're creating this matrix of chaos. Well, it turns out that lauric acid indirectly turning into monolaurin can sort of inhibit that. So it's acting upon it in a different way. And then lastly, it helps stabilize the human cell membrane. So basically, we always have this tug of war going between our human cells and our bacteria. And they should be working symbiotically, but occasionally you have this riffraff between the two. And if you have a stable human cell, then you're in a better situation in your reaction with your bacteria. Again, it's like we are a host and we have to make sure the bacteria is happy. So anyhow, monolaurin works upon 3 different avenues, so we end up not developing a resistance to it, which is pretty darn cool. It is extremely important that when you're shopping for any kind of coconut product or coconut oil that you try to go organic, but most importantly, if you're looking at oil, do not get refined. Make sure that you get extra virgin. Okay, studies have demonstrated that extra virgin coconut oil has 7 times the amount of polyphenols than you would find in a refined version. Now, this is where things get kind of sketchy when you look at a lot of the research. Some of the earlier research indicated that coconut oil is going to contribute to high levels of LDL and this and that. Well, if you start diving into the studies, you find they use refined coconut oil, which doesn't have the polyphenols. So it doesn't have the oxidized LDL prevention. So we have to make sure we include the polyphenols because that's what's allowing this saturated fat to essentially be a safe saturated fat. So even if our LDL levels go up, at least we have the protection from the polyphenols to contribute it to not being an oxidized form. That's kind of complex science, but the point is LDL is not as bad as you think. You just don't want oxidized LDL. This is a good time for me to mention as well, if you want to check out Thrive Market down below in the description, they have a bunch of different coconut products that I recommend. So Thrive Market is an online membership-based grocery store. So deliver groceries right to your doorstep. So the cool thing is, in the world of keto, in the world of fasting, I've been able to team up with them and create specific grocery bundles, grocery boxes. So basically I assemble the groceries that I would like to get at the grocery store and put them into a box so that people that are watching my videos or people that follow my channel or whatever can actually grab them, and it's like they're going grocery shopping with me and then they get delivered right to your doorstep. So Thrive is a huge supporter and a sponsor of this channel, so a big thank you to them, but also just special access for anyone down below that's watching this video to check out Thrive Market so you don't have to go to the grocery store anymore for a little while. So there's another piece that we have to look at when we look at coconut oil, okay, and specifically the polyphenols. There's a journal that's called Mechanisms and Methods, and it took a look at colon cells and exposed them to the polyphenols that you would find in an extra virgin coconut oil. Okay, well, what they found is that when they exposed these colon cells, they had a 75% reduction in oxidative stress damage or cell death. So normally our cells are going to go through kind of a natural death process, right? They're going to get exposed to reactive oxygen species, exposed to stressors, and it's going to kill them. Well, it turns out that the polyphenols in coconut oil, when they're extracted, have pretty powerful antioxidant capabilities. And here's 3 reasons why this is occurring. For one, they have a direct scavenging effect. Okay, the polyphenols themselves can actually go through and scavenge some of the free radicals. So they externally can contribute to that. Then they indirectly stimulate what is called NRF2, which is our body's sort of endogenous antioxidant production in a lot of ways. So this means that not only do we have an exogenous fight going on where we have something coming in and fighting off some of the reactive oxygen species, we're also upregulating our body's natural defenses, which is pretty cool. And then lastly, when you look at the master antioxidant within the body, which is known as glutathione, we find the polyphenols play a big role in the regeneration and the overall synthesis of glutathione. So glutathione is known as the body's master antioxidant. So it's kind of this big antioxidant that helps us restore, helps us reset. And once again, we find the polyphenols in the coconut oil play a big role. Now, when you look at full spectrum coconut, like you get in coconut milk, or maybe you'd get in coconut cream or coconut itself, you have a whole world that gets opened up as well. We just focused on coconut oil. So I'll make sure that I tie this in with some more content later on that explains more about what you're getting with full spectrum coconut. And the reason that I'm doing these high fat superfood videos is because we are pleased to announce that we're going to be having a Mediterranean keto cookbook that's coming out. And it's all built around these 7 high fat superfoods that we've talked about. Avocado, macadamia nuts, coconut, extra virgin olive oil, avocado, you name it. You have to watch the series to find out. I'll see you tomorrow.